Good morning and welcome again to Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi, South Africa. My name is Steve Falconbridge and I'm joined on camera by VM the Wildebeest. And I hope you have had a wonderful evening or a wonderful morning wherever it is you may be. Please feel free to send through your questions on Twitter at #SafariLive or follow the YouTube stream. Let us know how it's going. We are sitting in quite a nice cool morning this morning. It's 17 degrees Celsius and 64 degrees Fahrenheit. The birds are slowly starting to wake up. We've just turned off the spotlight. It has been quite dark until now. And I'm going to be joined by James on Jigger and Noel, who is on Bushwalk this morning, as well as our two feeds up in the Masai Mara. So this morning we got a report from the dam cam. Someone saw apparently Tumba last night. I'm not sure how you identified him, but we have had a look around the dam and there has been no sign of him or any tracks so far. So we are continuing on and we're going to do a big loop up onto the northern boundary and come all the way back again. But as promised yesterday, I'm going to follow up on my discussion of the magic guari tree, and we will give you some interesting information about that wonderful tree. So please jump on board and enjoy and join us this morning on Safari Live. It is a lovely cool morning. And while we continue on this route up towards the northern boundary, Mr. Henry would like to say good morning.
Good morning. Hello and welcome to this end of the Sunrise Safari. Let me stop and greet you properly. It's very impolite of me not to. My name is James Henry, as you can see. Yes. And on camera today is Sébastien Rombi.
Morning, everyone.
There he is, the greatest French Gabonese fighter aircraft pilot ever. The only one as well, probably. Okay, we are going down this road towards hopefully where Tundi has got her little baby. I've only had one very small glimpse of the youngster, and so I'm hoping to spend a bit of quality time with the little thing today. And of course, I would love to hear what do you think about that using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Otherwise, of course, you can talk to us on the chat stream on YouTube. Good. Excellent, that's all I have to say about that. We have various technical pieces of bits and pieces here today. We will hopefully be deploying Ronald at some stage and or the microscope. Plenty of elephant tracks up here, and I know Steve was talking about Tumba's appearance at the dam cam yesterday evening at about 2 p.m. At least 2 a.m., sorry. Today morning at 2 a.m. I always find it difficult to describe that time of the day. And how very interesting that he's come this far north, that he's decided he's safe enough to come up here, or that he's just exploring a bit more. And I wonder if it hasn't got to do with the fact that his mother has set up residence in this area. There were plenty of elephants through here. Sebastian said they disturbed his slumbers last night. So maybe we'll get a chance to spend some time with them. And for those of you who missed it, I spent a very special sort of 15 or 20 minutes yesterday evening with a young bull elephant, probably about 15 or 16 years old, I'd say, on foot. And we sat with him, and he just came closer and closer and closer to us, paying absolutely no attention whatsoever, feeding away. And eventually we left him standing eating his Friday afternoon dinner. It was one of the most special elephant sightings I've ever had. So I will attempt, well, it's always best not to try and attempt a repeat of such things, to just accept them as they come along. But it would be nice to have another one. Some hyena tracks heading down the road here. There are always hyena tracks heading down this road in the morning. It seems to be a pathway to whatever nightclub they attend. Kirsten, if you think I heard that, you're giving a hugely overly enthusiastic estimate of my hearing. Cal? Oh, Cal, you need a Tundi and scrub legged No, scrubby-legged fix. Ah, apparently you want to just see Tundi and the cub. Well, that's fine. Let's go and see Tundi and the cub, Cal. Scrubby-legged cub fix. It looks like a dog track on the road as well. A hound. No, it's not. It's a small hyena, I think. Now, she could be anywhere around here. No, there is... I would show this to you, everyone, but the light is not really good enough, I'm afraid, for you to make any meaningful sense of it. No, it's a hyena and a young hyena. Now, just a quick recap for those of you who have perhaps just stumbled upon this stream, wondering what on earth these people are on about. Tundi is a leopardess with a cub around here, and we saw her yesterday. We've been following her for many years, and we're hoping to get a view of her this morning. Tristan said she was in here. You know where she was, Seb. That's wonderful. Okay, well, Sebastian instructs me on how to get into the sighting. Let's head back across to Steve. Apparently he has something on the ground.
Do have something on the ground, folks, but it is a little bit unclear. Don't know if you can get in on this, V. I'll just circle it for you here. There's the two pads. There's this one and there's that one. I don't know if you can get on there. It's difficult in this light. Very difficult. But here you can see 3 lobes. 1, 2, 3, 4 toes. How's it coming up for you there? Right. Fantastic. Okay, with 3 lobes, 4 toes, and this track is quite clear. It's almost the size of my hand. That is a huge track. That is the back foot of a male lion, and here we have the front foot, and it's unclear. It's almost, if you ever watch a male lion or a male leopard walking, I mean, here's the toes. There's 4 toes, and here's the pad. If you compare it to that one, it's very messy, because when they walk like they own the world, and they hit their hand on their foot on the floor, and it leaves this very, very characteristic messy track. Lionesses don't walk like that unless maybe they're running, but male lion and leopard, they walk with this exaggerated front foot that smacks on the floor as if to say, watch me, I'm the boss. And that's the front, and that's the back, and there's the back of the front of the back pad and the back of the front. There's only about 1 inch or 2 between them, which indicates the speed was a very medium-paced walk. So if you see a very messy track like this, you can tell straight away that it's a male because of the way he's hitting the floor and because it's not far apart. If this back track was further apart, this front track could be a bit messier on a female because she's moving quicker. But this guy is moving very casually, and there are 2 tracks here in the road, and there were reports yesterday of north of our boundary of a couple males that none of the guys have never seen before. So we are right up on the northern boundary. We're going to come around and see. Who knows, we might be lucky. There's potential that they've crossed north, but it would be wonderful to see a big male lion on Djuma this morning. For those of you who are not aware, Djuma actually means the roar of the lion. So we will also keep our ears peeled. And there's something over there. Is that just a log? Yes, it is. It is a log, but important to have a look with binoculars from time to time, because many a time in the past I have been surprised by what we call a lion log, and it is actually a lion. So when you first come out into this environment, it's important to see the things that aren't lions to be able to see the things that are lions. So in the beginning, people stop us for all sorts of things. Don't worry, it's important to be able to stop, because if you don't see the log, you'll never see the actual lion. So it's important to keep going, and eventually, what's the phrase? You see the wood through the trees, so to speak. But we are right up on the northern boundary now, and we're going to come around and see if, Wildebeest is quite confident that these animals, sorry about the bumps, would have gone straight out. But with male lions, it's hard to say, you know, what were they doing? Where were they going? What was their intentions? So folks, I believe Noelle has managed to get her shoes tied up and all technical issues sorted out, and she's on a bushwalk, and we're going over to her.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm climbing a beautiful little termite mound here to see out over the African bushveld savanna. I'm excited to be on bushwalk. I haven't been on bushwalk in forever. I am Noelle, and on camera I have Davi. Hello, Davi saying hello, but he's holding the camera. We also have Herbie with us as our rifle and security, and we are going to look for Tumba, because Steve said he didn't find any tracks, and we're going to check some places the vehicles can't go, which will be helpful. And then maybe if we find him, we can get Steve in as well. And then we're going to look for some elephants. I really want elephants. I love elephants on foot. But other than that, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous morning. The sun is not quite up yet, soon. But the moon is up. And it's just a tiny little sliver of a Cheshire cat grin up that side. Can we hear all the sounds? So there's a emerald spotted wood dove calling in the back. Boop, 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 boop. And we've got a black-headed oriole that's calling. Again, this is one of my favorite things about bushwalk, is all the sounds and just listening and being on foot. Our vehicles are very small, well, ours because they're short bodies, but you're still up a bit high. Now we're just on our own 2 feet, and it's absolutely incredible. Okay, so now I'm on this termite mound, and termites are always fascinating. This is not the largest termite mound you'll see, but it's quite a decent-sized one. So basically, this termite mound's going to grow the size of a soccer ball or a football every year, roughly, depending on the rain. So if you think of my 2 hands are holding a football or a soccer ball right now, and then you look at that in comparison to this mound, that's a lot of work for such a tiny, tiny little organism. Now, most of those termites will be about the size, or half the size of your pinky fingernail, depending on how big your pinky fingernail is. And there'll be millions and millions and millions of them inside of here. And we're only seeing the very tippy top of this termite mound. I was chatting with some friends when I was on leave. There's been some discussion on whether or not this is the tippy top, like an iceberg, and then the rest is underneath, or if this is, say, 2/3 of the termite mound, and then there's only 1/3 underneath. And something that we were discussing is the fact that the termite mounds need the water table that's underneath. And so the water table itself is going to dictate how much of this termite mound is underneath the water here. So if the water table only goes down 1 meter, then yes, this will be 2/3 on top and 1/3 on the bottom. But if the water table goes down 25 meters, it's probably going to be vice versa. Now, again, we were talking about the size of it. This termite mound can live for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and it grows and it grows and it grows. So the one that we're standing on now, I would probably say is a couple hundred years old, what with the size of the average growth that we were discussing, as well as the fact that you can see, if you come up here, you can see it's grown up this way, but there's other parts where it's grown in different directions. So there's parts that have fallen off. So this is definitely an old one. Okay, so we're going to walk down towards the dam in front of the lodge. Herbie's already started to make his way down there. And we're going to try and see what tracks we can pick up. Herbie and I were discussing, I've never seen Tumba, and I'm so excited. So, ooh. 2 lions in the distance, seen on dam cam. All the viewers are saying, oh, thank you guys so much, because you also know how much I love lions on foot. So we're just going to be on the road for a little bit, just as we catch up with Herbie. And then we're going to go now, we're going to be tracking Tumba, who I haven't seen, and then we'll probably be tracking some lions as well. Now, I have a feeling that those lions are probably the 2 Birmingham males that were seen yesterday with the Nkuhumas, but I'm just postulating now. We need to see the tracks first. And if we do find the tracks, we will be able to tell you sort of what age they are and which direction and all of that. So while I'm busy off tracking with Herbie and Davi, I think let's send you over to James, who's busy looking for Tundi, and we'll see you soon.
I am looking for Tundi, and we've just come down to where she was yesterday. And there are birds shouting in various places around here, but as yet no sign of spotties. And we've mentioned sort of the word den in association with this area where we find ourselves now, but I don't think that this is going to be strictly a den at all. I think that the cub is now old enough at 9 weeks odd to be moving away from permanent sort of den sites. And so what I think you'll find is that she is being left to rest in certain areas while mum goes off to hunt, so she could easily be around here. But I don't think that she's going to have a permanent den site again. I'll say that as we go past this termite mound where the first lot of birds were shouting. We do not see anything over here. I think it is worth scratching around here a little bit longer though, to see if we aren't lucky. There's some birds shouting towards the pan there, so let's go over there. Some magpie shrikes, we'll just quickly show them to you. They're sitting on the tree yelling, but whether they're yelling at each other I'm not sure. Straight in front of us. Well, it's not deadish. No, straight in front there. To the right. Right. So maybe you're on the left. Didn't you see the birds there? That's it.
Okay.
And that's it. There we have magpie shrikes. And you can see them giving off their little sort of alarm call there. Now they're definitely upset about something. They're either upset about a predator or they're upset about each other. We could be having some sort of territorial dispute about whether or not they have the right to be there. So there could be a meeting of two flocks. We do know that there are a lot of them. Hold on, there's going to be a bit of a bump. Yeah, now Julia, very good question. You say, well, the cubs stay in one place when the mother goes hunting. Yes and no. At this age, yes, probably. But as she gets older, she'll start to explore more and more widely. So she'll start just going a little bit out of where she's staying, a little bit out of cover, go and see if a bird walks past, she might try and catch that. And so the older she gets, the more she'll kind of move around. There are a whole lot of other birds on the ground there. Alright, we're going to scratch around here, I think, for another 10 minutes or so. While we do that, Stephen must be on the northern boundary by now. Let's go and find out if anything's crossed in here.
We are indeed on the northern boundary, folks, and the only thing I have to update you on at the moment is the wonderful sunset. Followed those tracks for a little bit and they just seemed to disappear, as lions tend to do. They have this magical tendency to suddenly fly. But the area we were in there, the soil was pretty hard, a bit crusty. It was difficult to make out any sort of direction, but they were definitely headed in a northerly direction towards our boundary. So we've done a bit of a loop, sort of more west from where we were. Now we're right on the northern boundary. We're going to head back along the cut line and hopefully we'll see some tracks, and hopefully they're not coming out. And if they don't come out, then maybe they're still inside. So that is our plan for the morning, and failing that, we will see if we can still find any activity of that young Samba somewhere in and around. Michael would like for us to look for a possible hyena den. Michael, on my bushwalk 2-3 days ago, we searched this entire northern section of our property for a hyena den site. We looked at all of the old den sites and there's nothing there at all. And then all the other den sites that are recorded on the property we've checked, and there seems to be no activity. So it's very possible that they are denning just north or south of our boundaries, but we don't have that information. But we will keep our eyes open. I'd love to find a den site. It'd be wonderful to see some hyena. Okay, so from our sunrise and our expedition for lion tracks. I believe Noel has also got a golden orb in the sky.
We have the most beautiful sunrise that's starting up this morning, and the bird calls are starting up a bit more. So I'm just going to stay quiet for a little bit and see if everyone can hear what's going on around us. Excellent. Yeah, it's a little bit hard because of the microphone set up with us on Bushwalk, but you can just get that little bit in the background. Now, we have found some very interesting tracks. So Herbie and I actually first met before I started Safari Live. We met on a trailing course. I was busy trying to work on getting my 100% of my trailing, and so was Herbie. And we met there. So whenever Herbie and I go walking, the first sort of half an hour, Herbie and I are like, look at this track, look at this track, look at this track. So we've been teaching Davi. So we have some really cool tracks just down here. So do you all remember the other day when we kept seeing all those wonderful chameleons crossing the road? These are chameleon tracks. Okay, here and here, and moving up, and you see that pattern, that sort of zigzagging pattern. Now, the soil is not detailed enough for me to show you the toes, but basically what you're looking at is in front they have 3 fused toes, and at the back 2 fused toes, so that it makes a sort of cupping motion like this. Obviously, these are going to be fused like that. So when they walk and they do that funny move and then put down and then put down, this is what pops up. If it were a mouse, you would see this. This is very deliberate and precise, one by one by one, and not a track we get to see often at all. We've talked about it every now and then when we've been out and about, and this is just super special. So one of the things Herbie and I were discussing now is when we start off in the morning on walks like this, it's nice to check some of the roads because that's where you're going to get some of the nicer tracks. And then this, I mean, super special, hey? Okay, so I believe that some of you are hoping to maybe find hyena den. We can see what we can do. But I'm seeing that Herbie is sort of veering off towards the Mulawati this way and then up onto the dam wall. So I have a feeling that we haven't picked up any lion or leopard tracks here while I've been chatting with you. And we're going to pick them up on the farther end there. So those 2 males, here's the mouse track that I wanted to show you in comparison with that, I'm sorry, I want to say Limphon, which is the Shangaan word, but the chameleon track. This is that bipedal hop they do. So this will be a front foot, and then bringing back the 2 feet over, and like this, kind of like a squirrel. So you're going to get something like that with like a bushveld gerbil. And then if it was busy scavenging around, you would see a lot more like this in between. So very, very different from that chameleon track. Okay. So, sorry, as I was saying... Yeah, guys, it is very cool, eh? So as I was saying, Herbie's heading across, so I have a feeling we're going to pick up those tracks of Tumba more this side and possibly into the Mulawati, but we'll have to wait and see. And those lion tracks, there's a block. Remember, a block is the space in between the roads. That's what we call a block. The block up in here is probably where we're going to find those lion tracks. The Inkahumas like to walk through there, as do the Birmingham males. Okay. So, as... Proud cat mama, you're wondering if I carry an ash bag. I know Scott keeps his hanging down here. Proud cat mama, I actually don't. I haven't my whole career. I haven't worked with one. I actually do need to make one. Steph prefers that we do that, but I don't know. Like right now, I can stand, and I can feel that the wind's coming a little bit behind me. You just feel it on your body. So that's what I do. Every now and then, I'll do this. And pick up the grass. Let it get all nice and fine. And then you let it fall so that it's a very slight breeze coming from behind. I know some people that kick the dirt like this. That's not my favorite. It can get into your rifle. So another thing that I'll sometimes do is a bit like this. And those are the methods I traditionally use, but I do need to start with the ash bag, because that's what we do here. But thanks for asking. I appreciate that. Okay. James is still searching for Tundi, so I think let's head on over to him as we get over to the other side of the dam. And once we find something magical, we'll definitely see you again.
Well, I too would like to see something magical, everybody. The sight of a cub in the glorious golden light. Unfortunately, we are not having a huge amount of luck. In fact, we're having none whatsoever. We have, however, seen more duikers than I thought possible. 5 of them so far. And, well, you know, leopards like to eat duikers, so there's plenty of stuff here for Thandi to eat, long-suffering mother. And there are also many, many hyena tracks indicating that perhaps there is a den somewhere around here. But I mean, they're all heading down towards the south. Is there a leopard track amongst that lot? Don't think so, no. So what we'll do is we'll just do a loop around this block and see if we don't come up with something. We won't spend the whole drive knocking about here, but I think it's worth spending a bit of time because to catch her in this light would be very special. No, those are all hyena tracks, hundreds of them, knocking up and down the road. As Seb says, not very nice that they're lurking around where the cub was. And the answer, of course, is no, not very nice, but they do that all the time, don't they? And somehow these leopards manage to avoid them most of the time. It's always a danger, though. I suppose you might liken it to keeping... Let's think about human children and the care that their parents lavish on them. And let's think of an example of, say, a big city. I mean, the risk... Let's say you live in a big city in a kind of middle-class environment. You know, your child, barring some dread disease, freak of nature or freak of chance, has got a probably 98% chance of making it to adulthood, maybe 95% chance, because we've managed to shelter our children from the dangers of the world so effectively as human beings. Imagine that situation and a reduction of that 95% chance to about a 20% chance. That's quite something. It would be like trying to raise your child on the streets of New York without any form of shelter, and often having to leave your baby in an alleyway somewhere under a cardboard box so that you could go off and forage for food somewhere. That's what it's like for these leopards. And I've never actually thought about it like that, but that's how difficult it is. That you can imagine the chances of a child surviving something like that. Similar sort of a thing. Of course, not for anything like the length of time that you'd have to as a human being, because young Thandi's daughter will become a lot more nimble and able to hide and climb trees much more quickly than a human child would. But that's the kind of risks that this little thing faces. And that's why every adult leopard is something of a miracle. Not that every child is not a miracle as well, but you know what I mean. You catch my drift. There are no twacks coming out of this block that I can see. Of course, that doesn't mean to say that they aren't here. Well, we'll do a little loopy around. We're approaching Japan now. Kirsten, are you still there? Just checking that our director is still there. Oh, she is there. Magnificent. And of course it would be dreadful for us not to have some form of cat for you on Cat-a-Day. Yeah, Stanley, you say you hope the cub makes it because she is super pretty. Well, Stanley, much like I've never met... Who? Snazzy. Much like I've never met anybody who has ever said, oh, that's a bit of a small male lion. I've never met anybody who hasn't found a leopard cub pretty or cute or amazing, because they just are. I've met many children of whom I've thought, oh, ugh. Really? But I've never met the same of a young animal out here. Isn't my baby beautiful? Yeah. Really stunning. Normally they grow into themselves, I suppose. Human babies, as Seb says, are not cute. I have to agree. They don't compare with leopard or lion babies. Creates any offence we may have called. Seb's definitely allowed to speak like this because he has his own child. I do not, so I'm just beautiful, yes. Let's get across to Steve to find out how his golden patrol is progressing.
James, how can you say human babies are not cute? Wherever that topic came from. So folks, we have traversed the entire northern section of our boundary now. I've been driving very slowly and there's been no obvious sign of a male lion track crossing out, which is a positive sign in the fact that those tracks were quite fresh that we saw definitely from earlier this morning, and it's possible that they have maybe stayed inside. So we're now on Gowrie cut line, which is sort of the middle of our property, and we come back in and then we'll cut along our fire break, and that's back to where we had them last. And it's possible if we find tracks along that way. Otherwise they're inside this section, which is quite positive because that means we have a much better chance of finding them. As soon as they cross north and out, we can't look anymore. So here we have the fire break. It's generally a band of about 50-60 yards worth of a block running in a parallel line, and that's to prevent any form of if a fire comes in from the north, then it'll break against this fire break. And also this is a management road which can assist if a big fire is coming from the north. Oh, here we have a lovely bird, just always gone. Was a crested barbet. Fire comes to the north, the management can use this road to drive along and put a fire in, because the best way to fight fire, as we know, is with fire. Okay, but it is a bit more tricky on this fire break. The road is quite hard, and it would be wonderful if we could find a male lion. It's been a long time since I've seen a nice big maned male, because they are majestic and magnificent. So as we continue looking for tracks, I do believe Noel has got some tracks for you.
We do. We have Tamba's tracks. All right. So it's very funny. One of you updated and said, please tell Noel he came from the east and then he went north. And just as that was coming through, we're sitting here staring at the tracks. So we're thinking alike today. We have a beautiful sequence of leopard tracks. Now, I've never seen Tamba, so I'm looking at these tracks here, and this is a big leopard track for the age that I know Tamba to be. So I'm looking at Herbie, I'm going, are you sure this is from him? And he says, yeah, but I mean, these, for that male who's a little bit smaller than Hasana, these are big tracks. He is going to be a big, big boy. So what I've done here is I've just drawn out a little sequence for you. So we have a front track here and a back track. Front track, back track, front track, back track. Okay? So this is the front and back left. This is the front and back right, front and back left. Okay? So this here, between this one and this one, is one step, and then this is one stride. We did this a long time ago, but basically I was demonstrating here for Davies from the back end of this front left track all the way up like I've drawn here to the top of this back left track. That is the shoulder height of Tamba, which is about the size of my stick. So this is the shoulder height of Tamba, comes up to my hip. Okay? In the vehicle, you wouldn't think that he was this tall, but he is. A lion comes up to here on me. Much, much, much bigger. To give you another example, this is Herbie. Okay, so this is Herbie's front left. This is Herbie's left foot, Herbie's right foot, Herbie's left foot. This is Herbie's shoulder. Okay, so there's about a half a meter on top of Tumba. So you would get here, and then Herbie and I are about the same height. So this is Herbie there. And that's how you tell. So now these tracks walk up to that bush, and then they cut in towards that dead tree, and then they start moving east again. And this is one of the reasons why Herbie and I have been spending some time here, is Herbie and I don't know Tumba at all, and Herbie's like, I don't know him as well as I know the other leopards, but he does know that Tumba likes the Mowati, and he likes Gowrie Cutline. So what are the tracks doing? Heading straight towards Gowrie Cutline. So that's what we're going to do. And see what we can find along the way. Now, where we're heading towards Gowrie Cutline, we're tracking into the sun. Tracking into the sun is very difficult. Can't see properly, but there's 3 of us, so it's fine. And then hopefully the lions will pop out somewhere around here. Ooh, Sean, have I ever had a dangerous encounter on a bushwalk? Sean, yes. There have been some times that have been challenging, let's say. One, I was training a guide and we had some very rough interactions with a black rhino. That one took me a little while to get over. One, I'll tell you about this one. So this walking stick that I have was made by an old tracker of mine with one eye. Alfred. I loved him. He was amazing. He made me this stick. And Alfred and I were busy tracking white rhino one day. And now the guests that we had, the only thing they hadn't seen was white rhino. And these people were determined we're going to see white rhino. So Alfred and I are determined to show them white rhino. So now we get to a spot we weren't allowed to off-road. There was too much rain that had happened. When we got the tracks go off-road. So we get off. Let's imagine here's the road where I'm standing. We get off. And we start tracking. We track up to about this bush here. And then just behind this bush, over this way, just a few more meters behind, are the white rhino. So Alfred and I are crouched down behind this bush, and we're signaling to each other about what we're going to do. And as we're doing that, the wind switches for half a second like this. And just that half second, those rhinos turn and they start coming. But now white rhinos usually move off and black rhinos usually come. This was very different. These white rhinos came, and they came up to this bush here. Alfred and I are crouched like this. And these white rhinos are here. And we're just standing very still. And then it looks like the female wants to come through. So we both got behind a torchwood tree like this. And they ran off around us and then kept going. Okay? Alfred and I were... I don't know how to describe this in really delicate language, so I'm going to do the best I can. We were very happy that we were trained enough in what we do that our short pants were not dirty. I'll put it to you that way. It was very, very, very close. So then as we get back to the vehicle, the guests go, "Oh, we saw the rhinos. It was amazing. Thank you so much." And we're like, "Oh, that's good." They're like, "Can we go for it again?" And Alfred and I are like, "Okay." Thank goodness we get down the road and they're just standing in the road. But yeah, that was very close. Alfred and I both got back. We didn't have game drive that afternoon. We both got back and had a little bit of apple juice. I'm not going to lie. It was necessary. That's for sure. Oh, the stories that happen. Trying to think, I'm sure I have more stories. It's interesting which ones come to mind and which ones stay away. I've had a couple. Yeah, let me think about it and I'll see what else I can come up with. And while I'm thinking, let's go over to James, who's a very good thinker, and see what he has pondered and what he wants to tell you.
Well, the birds are going crazy in this area. They're still shouting like mad things. All the magpie shrikes. And yet what they could be shouting at, I just don't know. It is rather strange that they should be doing it right around where this leopard was left yesterday evening. Ooh. Apologies. So you can probably hear them. If I shut up, you'll be able to hear them going. I've got a Franklin going as well. What I actually think's going on here is that we have a territorial dispute, quite possibly between two flocks of magpie shrikes. Isn't it a glorious morning? All right, well, we've got some francolins shouting up ahead. Let's try those. Well, Steph, sorry, you say, could the birds be shouting at me? No, I don't think they would. They don't normally shout at human beings at all. They just carry on with their lives. And, I mean, they were shouting long before we got here. There's a very irritated francolin up ahead. The elephants have made such a mess in here. Dropped their litter all over. And the francolin sounding very distressed through here. Let's have a look-see. Maybe she's on the road now. Ashley, interesting question. Yeah, there's something going on here. You say, who's the alpha leopard in the area? Ashley, there's no such thing as an alpha leopard. Every leopard is the alpha in their own territory. Look, they are very cross. Let me just put my binoculars in there. So, Ashley, because leopards are solitary, they are, by very nature, the alphas or dominant leopards in their own territories. Of course, if they're young and not yet territorial, then they would be subordinate. But I guess, if they are, if you're going to use the term alpha, you kind of need to have sort of a social interaction between two members of the same species, like you would in a lion pride or like you would in a wild dog pack or a hyena clan. But that obviously doesn't occur with leopards. And so even someone like Tumba, who is just over, I can never remember that cat's age, he's about 18 months old now. Although he's not dominant in the area where he lives, you wouldn't describe him as an omega. You just describe him as a non-territorial male, if you know what I mean. I hope that's as clear as mud. Now everyone's calming down. I'm getting the distinct impression that we should probably go away from here and then come back a little bit later and see if she hasn't returned. And you see the hornbills there? Marvellous. Marvellous stuff. Yeah, a red-billed hornbill. East and west are a little bit like yellow and red. I always say the one I don't mean first before correcting myself. I don't think I've ever managed to say something is heading east before I've said it's heading east. Same as the hornbills. There they are now, sitting in gorgeous light. Let me get my fat bonce out of the way. Snazzy, you say if a bird hit a branch full of bees, is that correct? Would the bees sting the bird? Yes, absolutely. If a bird tried to break into a bee's hive, then I think they would certainly swarm it and try and attack it. But I also think you'll find that their feathers provide excellent protection against bee stings. And I think a bird would have to do something pretty silly to get itself sort of attacked by bees. But in theory, yes. It's always good to just sit in a place like this for a while. Absorb the peace of the morning, the warm rays, enjoy the sight of a hornbill, but mostly listen out for irritated animals who have seen predators. Preening process, of course, extremely important. Without it, the bird would plummet from the sky when it took off. Very nice. Look at that. Little honey-coloured eye. They always look slightly surprised. Yeah, these birds are going crazy again behind us. Andrea, you were wondering if this hornbill would try to eat a leopard cub. Andrea, no, I think the chances are almost zero that a red-billed hornbill would try and eat a leopard cub. The diet of the red-billed hornbill is largely fruits, insects, and, well, the yellow-billed version might take a small mammal, but only a small mammal sort of that big. A leopard cub, when it's born, is about that big. And it's about that big now, and so there's no chance that a hornbill that size, hornbill's only that big, its head is only that big, there's no chance that it would try and eat a leopard cub, no. This is very, very not distressing, but frustrating, because there are so many shouting birds around here. Let's pop around this corner, and then we're going to do one more loop through here, and then we're going to leave this area and come back a bit later. Stephen, I believe, has got a version of a hornbill that he would like to show you now.
Yes, we do. We found a little smorgasbord here for the birds. We had a Burchell starling just before, and now we've got a crested franklin. And there was a little red-billed hornbill that's just popped up on the left there. There he is. Well, that's some elephant dung from last night. We know the Ellies were here. We're on not far from Vuyatela Dam, where I had an incident with Ronald and the elephants, where they were playing a little bit of soccer with Ronald. And here you can see them scratching through the dung, looking for grubs and little insects, maybe any leftover seeds, and very, very instrumental in the distribution of the manure. The doesn't stay as a big bolus, it gets spread out. There we go, look at the scratching. Very, very important aspects of what these birds do. Chickens do it, guinea fowls do it, and if you allow them to do it naturally, they spread the manure out, they scratch, they dig, they disturb soil, they allow certain seeds to grow, they feed on certain seeds. They obviously also feed on a lot of grubs, so they decrease the amount of fly larvae that can be produced in a pile of dung. Beautiful. See the orange legs and the dark beak with the white eyebrow stripe. This is the crested franklin. Penny would like to know if a bird's feet get cold because they have no feathers. It is possible. I mean, we do see it a lot with the aquatic birds, that they actually tuck one of the legs in at a time to keep it warm. But on the outside, there's no real blood vessels on the surface of the legs. Hence, there's no feathers. So by having no blood on the surface of the legs there means that they don't actually cool down too much on the legs. It's a strategy that a lot of your raptors have, where there's no blood circulation to the top surface of the leg, which means that if they do fight a snake or something and the snake bites them, it actually protects them from being envenomated by the snake venom. But that is a very good question. Maybe we should think of inventing something for the birds called bird socks. But on the note of legs are a very important characteristic of identifying. And they are having a wonderful morning, are they not? And I believe Taylor McCurdy is up and the Masai Mara is online. And while we watch these birds scratch and have their breakfast, I hope you've had your oats and your cereal. We're going to be going to Taylor, who has got her version of the sunrise.
Good morning from the Mara Triangle. Look at the beautiful sunrise we have today. What a surprise, seeing as though this haze, mist, fog, whatever it is still upon us. But it is an absolutely beautiful scene. There are all the Balanites trees. It's one of the most amazing ways to wake up in the morning out here in the Mara. And I hope that you enjoyed that, but we're ready for a very exciting day. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Craig. What was that little... just quickly in there. Remember, this is a live and interactive safari, and you can chat to us, even us in the Mara. So hashtag Safari Live, or you can also talk to us via the YouTube chat. Now, something very exciting is that we've seen lion tracks, and I know that they must be fresh. I think I can see some more because it poured with rain last night at about, I think about 12 o'clock. Oh my, I've got all sorts of things. I'm just seeing, are those lion tracks? No? Anyways, well, we're going to try and find some more lion tracks and figure out which pride it is and where they've gone. So hopefully the next time you come to us, you'll have some tawny cats. Rolf does not have a lion, but he's got something much larger than that standing in the beautiful Mara.
Yes, thank you, Taylor, and good morning, everybody, and welcome aboard the other half of the Kenya Masai Mara Sunrise Safari. You're watching Safari Live as we look out over the plains. My name is Rolf Kirsten, and on the camera we have Adrian. Morning, Adrian, how's it? Please don't forget to join us on the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and on the YouTube live chat. Send us all your questions and your comments. We'd love for you to be involved in the biggest game drive in the world. Now, my plan for this morning, I think once again we're going to head out towards where we didn't manage to find the hyena den yesterday because we got caught in a little bit of a shower and a bit of a storm. So we left that plains where we were in search of where the hyenas had moved their den to. But I'm going to make my way in that direction again this morning, and we'll get sidetracked by whatever comes along the way. But what a beautiful start to the morning this is, with a lovely sunrise just over the head of a very nice looking bull elephant. And he's been very friendly towards us, not a problem. Unlike the two on the sunset safari yesterday that were in full must, this elephant bull is totally relaxed and doesn't have a problem in the world. These are probably one of the nicest animals to view in close quarters, both on the vehicle and on foot. Bull elephants that are not in must, because they really almost don't have a care in the world. They're often quite curious, but non-aggressively so. So it's always important just to check whether the bull elephant is in must or not, because he can go from complete friend to utter foe. And so we just maintain that carefulness. But this guy is obviously our friend at the moment. He doesn't have too much testosterone running through his blood, and so he's nice and calm and just worried about feeding, drinking, and maybe a little bit of curiosity. But he doesn't have that aggression. And what a beautiful sunrise over that elephant. That is absolutely fantastic. Great start to the morning. Yesterday afternoon was a little bit quiet for me, but you get that sometimes. You have a few excellent game drives, and then I always expect a little bit of quiet time, so make use of it for scenery and just enjoy the landscape and the vistas. But we're starting off nice and well this morning with this beautiful elephant and sunrise. So as this elephant walks off into the side, I think we are going to start up. Now, Snazzy, you just want to know, before I start up and drive off, how do elephants know where to dig for water? Well, Snazzy, I believe, and I think it has been proven, that it is an extremely acute sense of smell that elephants have, and they can smell fresh water from quite some distance. So normally when they're in little riverbeds or in pans that have dried up, and they can sense and smell with their very acute sense with their trunk, they can smell that there's fresh water there, and that's why they dig. And I've seen it regularly in the Namib Desert, where they do dig for fresh water, and they always find it. So they know where it is close to the surface and where it is accessible, just with a little bit of digging, and then they access that water. And it's absolutely phenomenal how they can smell that. But if your life depends on it, I'm pretty sure that you would also garner a sense for sniffing out water. All right, folks, so let's start up and let's get this sunrise safari underway. After that beautiful encounter with the elephant and the sunrise, I think let's send you on down south to catch up with Noel, who's got some lovely bushes to show you.
Good morning, Ralph. Good morning. I have some lovely bushes to show you. Davi is busy focusing in on a white berry bush, which is something we see a lot of, but what we don't see a lot of is the actual berries themselves. So you can see they're very white and very round and quite tiny. They're probably half the size of the tip of your pinky. Now, while we've been waiting, while Ralph has been with his elephant, Davi's been tasting them. And I say they're not very good, and he says to me, they taste fine, maybe a little bit like pesticides on top of them. So I've been having a good laugh. Now, I have found a treasure trove of things I would like to talk with all of you about. One of the things I want to discuss is in my hand at the moment. The other things that I want to discuss has to deal with these grasses. But actually, as I'm doing this, can you see here? I've just seen this now. I've been sitting here for 10 minutes, and I've just seen this now. Look at how amazingly intricate this tiny little spider web is. And it looks like there's something inside, and I can't tell if it's just one of the grass seeds that has fallen in there, which I think it might be, or if it's something else. But that's minute. So this is a tiny little spider, well, I would assume a tiny little spider, that's made this tiny little intricate web. And this is something I love about bushwalk, is, look, you can see things like this from the car, but, I mean, no. Nature is perfect. Nature is absolutely amazing. Okay. Now, spiders build webs to catch food, and they also build webs to put their babies. And what I have found in my left hand is something that is very cool. This, roughly the size of the top of my index finger and hollow inside. This is an egg casing for something like a moth or a caterpillar. I'm going to say a moth because it's a very papery substance. I don't know if we can hear that. Put it near my microphone. It's like very rough paper. And so it's obviously because it's hollow, there's nothing left inside, but they would have woven this and then they would have stuck it to something like this grass down here, and it would have been like this. A little bit. All right. I couldn't tell you which species. James might know. We can ask him. Steve-O might also know. We can also ask him. Then I just wanted to show you a little bit about this grass. So we film a lot of birds, and a lot of the birds we're filming recently are grass-eating birds. Look what this bushveld signal grass is starting to do to get the grass seeds out. This is what those birds are after. Also, if I touch like this, some of them are going to fall off. They're going to come to the ground, or if the wind blows very strong, and then that's how this grass is going to pollinate. It's very different to, say, this grass that is back here, which looks like one of the love grasses, and the love grass here has now started to poke out, and then that is going to be the seed that's going to carry on. And you see how it has all the little stickers and burrs on it? That's going to get stuck eventually, and then that's how it's going to germinate. Absolutely fantastic. Now, as I'm busy here contemplating grass seeds and wondering where Herbie is, because we've lost our tracks a little bit, let's head back to Steve, who has a hornbill with a nest, one of my favorite things to view, and then hopefully by the time you get back to us, we'll have an update on our leopard.
And we're back with what looks like a male yellow-billed hornbill who just flew in here with a beautiful, succulent, juicy-looking grasshopper. We waited here because he was here a moment before, and there's a beautiful cavity up in this marula tree just to our right-hand side. But now off he goes again. Hard for me to say, to be honest, if it was the male or if the female as well. But that is the hole there. We can't see too much more. But what happens essentially is they find a nice cavity. The male will often, in the beginning of the breeding season, will bring the female gifts, also known as nuptial gifts, and he has to provide all sorts of juicy, succulent treats for her. And then she chooses him. And if he's not a very good provider, she often will ditch him. And hornbills are regarded to be monogamous. But monogamous doesn't mean for life. It can mean just for one season. And so what that means is that if he's a good provider, she's now willing then to go into a cavity like that. He uses mud. They use a bit of their own excrement, and they cement to open or close the hole to something just like that, just so the horn can come in. And the reason why he needs to be such a good provider is because she'll go in there and she'll lose all of her flight feathers. She'll go through a complete molt, and that means that for weeks she's unable to fly. So if he dies or is unable to bring food, potentially that she will die as well. Quite a sad story, but essentially she's giving herself to him completely. So if he's not a good provider, then it's not going to work. But hornbills are extremely, extremely successful, and we find many of them around. And by them making that small cavity like that, it enables or prevents birds like your gymnogene or African harryhawk. They can stick their foot inside and grab the chicks or even the adult itself. And also monitor lizards and snakes find it very difficult to get inside. But it's designed perfectly for that sharp, long beak to go through. And once the female has laid the eggs and the chicks hatch after incubation, her feathers are completely molted again or grown back again. She's got a whole new set of flight feathers. She breaks out of the cavity. The chicks are what we call asynchronistic. So as soon as she lays the first one, she starts incubating. And then the second one, it takes about a day or so for another one, and then often 3 chicks. But what this does is it provides a different age group of the chicks. So they'll hatch days apart. But that is a huge difference in the bird world. And what that does is that if supplies there's a lot of food around, then both male and female, who will reseal the hole again, are able to provide food. But the biggest chick will get the most to feed. So if conditions are poor, one chick will probably survive and the other 2 might not. But if conditions are really, really favorable, there'll be lots and lots of food brought through by the parents. But by having those 3 different ages, it's often that the youngest doesn't make it, but only in really, really good conditions. It's sort of an insurance strategy. Can you hear that, folks, in the background? The classical whoop of a hyena. Marvelous sound to hear in the morning. Never heard any lions calling, but that lost my train of thought. But essentially, beautiful cavities like this in the marula tree. The tree's not dead. They probably nest in there year after year after year. Very, very successful strategy for these birds that dad or mum, whoever it is, has gone off and is searching for more food to bring back to feed these hungry, hungry chicks. Ravi's asking which is the largest of the hornbills, and I will show you. Let me just find the correct one. There it is. It's called the southern ground hornbill. There he is, or she, 110 centimeters. It's over 3, probably about 4 foot in height. A very, very big bird, as opposed to the yellow-billed, which is half of that size. Half of that size. So there's a very, very big difference. But the southern ground hornbills you find mainly walking along the ground. They do fly, They are okay flyers, but they are a very big bird. And what's interesting about them is they are the largest cooperative breeder known in birds in South Africa. And what that means is that there will be an alpha pair that do the breeding, and the rest assist in the rearing of what ends up only being one chick. But through habitat loss and destruction of indigenous areas in South Africa, we've seen their populations decline quite rapidly, and they are on the endangered list, and there's lots of conservation work going on to support them. We did see some last week, and the hornbill is coming back. Here he's coming back. They often do this, birds. They fly towards the nest. They have a little scan around. You see he's got something juicy in the beak. Have a scan around to make sure they're not being followed. And then once they are sure they're not being followed, the next step is to fly towards the nest. Here he comes. Beautiful flap flap glide, flight pattern of the hornbill. Those of you who've seen The Lion King, they document that very, very well. And here we go. There's hungry chicks inside there. And he cleans the beak. Wonderful, wonderful. So it is a very successful strategy, and it is why we see so many hornbills. So I hope I've given you some nice insights into these wonderful birds, or zazu, as a lot of you have known them to be called. And from the hornbills, we are going to be going north shortly. But we continue. We had no access or luck with those male lion tracks, but we're going to be going to Taylor, who has got some zebra.
Well, look at these zebra just reflecting upon themselves today. Ha 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 ha. No, they're not. They're just eating grass at the moment, but I thought it was quite cool with their reflection in that puddle of water. It was very pretty, especially in this beautiful light now. The sun is really powering through the clouds for a change. So hopefully we're going to have a really nice day, because it has been quite some time since we've had lots and lots of sun. We did experience, like I said, lots and lots of rain. So driving in these areas are going to be interesting. I wonder who's going to get stuck first, Ralph, or if it's going to be myself. But we'll have to see. Now there's a small group of zebra just off to the right that are, well, they're sort of grooming one another, but it looks like there's one that wants to cause a bit of nonsense. You can see nudging forward, biting the other zebra every now and then. You always get one in a herd, and so they're a little bit frisky and constantly wants to play. I wonder if that isn't a group of young stallions there, although it looks like a pretty big stallion in the middle. Let's see, I think they are young boys, in fact. And it's not uncommon to see smaller groups of males just following the breeding herds around. We kind of see it with impala too, a lot of the different animals just moving about. It is a lovely scene. You can still see that haze is still sitting quite thick out in the Mara. I don't know when it's gonna change. It actually might be quite nice on the river this morning, so we'll try and get down to the Mara River as quick as we can. Because if we get some hippos, we could get them with a little bit of mist, and that is always quite stunning, especially when they snort and blow the water from their nostrils. That would be very, very nice. And just the last little bit of the Olololo escarpment. Very cool. Right, let's keep going towards the Mara River. Sorry, zebra. Oh, we're going to do some serious sliding around today. It's going to be loads of fun. I just don't want to get stuck. I don't know if I can handle being stuck anymore. Now, Scarlett, you're wondering if I've ever had any animals follow my vehicle. Every now and then, I've had young white rhino calves that have been quite curious, follow me around. If I drive, move, tail after me. I've had a young wildebeest once. I think it got a bit lost. The herd was close by and it started following me around. This is when I was guiding. But I haven't had anything following me around on Safari Live. I was charged by a starling once before. You may remember at Buffelshoek Dam. That was interesting. It followed me for ages. I'd reversed very quickly out of that sighting. I was terrified. It was going to fly and peck my eyes out. I wasn't terrified. It was quite funny, actually. So no, Well, since being at Wild Earth, I can't say that I've had any animals following me around in the car. There have been quite a few cases, though, in Kruger, where very sadly animals have been separated from their mothers, and then for some reason they seem to take a liking to a car and will follow them around. That has not happened to me in the Kruger National Park, however. But I'm sure it happens around here every now and then too. Whee! No one has driven here yet, so it's basically just like this moment. I don't know who I'm supposed to be sending you to, because I thought Scott was on holiday. Steve. Because I heard Scott and then went, wait, when did he come back? Well, maybe he's doing a live from Cape Town. Right, we're going to head towards the Mara River, like I said, and hopefully find those hippos. We're going to send you across to Steve, and, well, I don't know what he's going to find for you, but I'm sure some birds will be on the list.
Something with very big ears and an itchy chin. I've got a marvelous little visual here of a scrub hare, ladies and gentlemen. And it's bizarre for me to see one at this time of day, just sort of hanging out and doing some preening or some grooming. But you can see how camouflaged it actually is. We're right in there on the zoom, and it's moving. But the strategy for these guys, they're quite camouflaged, and when they don't want to be seen, whoopsie, there we go, they just lie flat, their ears go flat onto the head. And VM is very surprised that they are still alive, because they are so brazen, they don't seem to be concerned by much. What a wonderful sighting. Beautiful big eyes, doing some cleaning. He's probably been out feeding all night. And there's a little grazer, perfectly adapted for just running along the ground, and they are extremely fast. He's quite a sociable guy. Most of the time in my life when I've seen scrub hares, they are on the move and they disappear very, very quickly. So this is quite unique to see him just pottering around doing his own thing, not concerned at all by the movement of us or the vehicle. There you go, scratchy head. Yes, indeed, everybody, this is awesome. And there he goes. He or her, it's hard for me to say. And look at that. You wouldn't be able to see that with your naked eye without the wildebeest's incredible zoom on the lens. So as we were driving along, we didn't hear it ourselves, but from the northern side, kind of in the area where we kind of lost those lion tracks, there was audio of male lions. So they have definitely crossed north, and that will be it for us for today, trying to follow up on those two. But I know Herbert and Noel are on the tracks of Tamba, and they're in that area. We've tried to help them, but we would like them to see what they can do. And we're going to head. We heard some hyena audio before, as you heard as well, and we see if we can maybe find a spotted dog-like creature. What a wonderful morning indeed. So while we continue searching, we're going to go back over to Mr. James Henry and see what he has found.
I found an elephant. There it is. A big bull elephant. There he is. He's probably pushing sort of 35 years, I'd say. Maybe a little bit younger. I say I've found a bull elephant. I actually didn't see him. Sebastian saw him. So we'll give him the credit. One must give credit where credit is due. Much as one likes to assume it for oneself, especially if one is an statistical presenter, as I am. Now, I think this is quite interesting for a few reasons. The first is that you can see the fruits there. There we are. And the fruits there are just about to ripen. And I wonder if he didn't snap this tree over in order to get at the fruits, although it would be very stupid of him to have done so. Because, of course, it does mean that this tree is going to pass on. Now, Philip, you're saying, what was the question you were asking about? What we get excited about that guests don't know? That guests don't understand. What do we get excited about that guests don't understand? Well, if you're a decent guide, Stephen, at least Philip, you will make guests understand the things that make you excited. So, I guess, Stephen, I guess it would be not Stephen, Philip, I guess it would be the small stuff. You know, the little things. Many people come out on safari to see elephants and to see lions and giraffe and that sort of stuff, which are very exciting always. But it would be the discovery of a new the grass, like the one Noel had earlier, or of a rainbow shield bug or something like that, that I think would really excite guides, but not necessarily excite somebody who'd come to Africa to see the iconic creatures that we have here. That makes sense? If you've come here with a sort of very expensive camera hoping to take world-class photographs of leopards, when your guide shows you a cicada beetle or a cicada bug, you're not exactly going to be overwhelmed with excitement. This fellow is being very peaceful to us at the moment. He is listening to us, of course. Ooh, UL, yes, they absolutely do. All animals do. You say, do elephants need salt or minerals? And where do they get salt and minerals? UL, they actually eat soil. So you will not, it's not uncommon to find an elephant picking up white soil from what we call sodic areas, which are areas, low-lying areas close to drainage systems where salts accumulate over the years, and they will put those salts into their mouth by means of the soil, so they will eat sand. It's quite an effective way of getting salt into the body. He's a fantastic old fellow, this. I tell you what, Herbert and I were discussing this the other day. While you've always got to be very careful, you really do find that in the Sabi sands, these elephants are much calmer than they are in so many other areas. Even up north at Angama, where I used to work, Herbie and I were just saying that one or two elephants there that were unreasonably unkind to human beings, whereas here that really doesn't seem to be the case. Scarlett, you're wondering about their vision and how good it is. I've heard people say various things, and I've yet to read anything particularly conclusive on it. I think their sight's about as good as ours. So that's just a little bit of a head shake at us. We obviously don't wish to engage in some sort of physical conflict with this fellow, so we may have to beat a hasty retreat at some stage. Scarlett, they will tell you, you see the angle he's standing now, they will tell you that an elephant has a blind spot there, and that some people who know elephants really well will say that you can walk up to an elephant with him turned roughly at the angle he is now, and he won't see you. And, you know, to the extent that you could almost get next to him and touch him. I don't know if that's true. I certainly haven't tried it myself. But their hearing, of course, and their smell is excellent. And they will turn to face you if they smell or hear you. And so I'm going to say that I think their eyes are about as good as ours. I don't think they're worse than ours. So you're just giving us a little bit of a head shake there in order to show that he was coming around this side of the tree, that he didn't wish to be engaged any closer, to which we acquiesced without question. Now, old Ralphus has managed to make his way to what I think must be his very favourite part of the Masai Mara, the hyena den. Enjoy.
Thanks, James, and everybody, look where we are. We're at one of my favourite places here next to the hyena den, and all these little cubs are nice and fresh early in the morning. Hey, buddy, don't come and chew on my tyres, please. All right. Now remember, I do just need to keep them a little bit away from the vehicle. They are very curious, so they do like to come up. They want to sniff and see what we're all about, but their eyes immediately go on to my lovely soft rubber-looking tires, and that's what I don't want them to go for. So if they get a little bit too close, I just tap a little bit on the vehicle sometimes, or just give them a psh. And that, you see, that helps a little bit, just to back them off. We don't want them getting too comfortable with us. And if they do get a little bit too comfortable, I can always move back a little bit. But there's so much action going on around the den here. All the cubs are out. Everybody's full of energy and running around. What a sight this is. And we've got a little bit of action here just up in front with a couple of adults and a little youngster there. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but there's a little bit of communication, vocalizing. Maybe we can listen in a bit. Good morning, everybody, and welcome aboard with us here in Kenya, in the Mara Triangle. We are just 1 degree south of the equator, and it's a lovely early morning next to the hyena den, and all the little cubs are out and about, full of energy, and nice and fresh in the morning. And there seems to be a little bit of vocalizing between those two adults and one of the cubs. I'm not sure what's going on, but we are watching intently. It seems they might have fed during the evening. And sometimes there's a little bit of food around. There can be a little bit of politics. But let's listen in there with that little youngster making a bit of vocalizing. A little bit of growling. Very often you hear the mumbled growl from the adults and then little squeals from the youngsters. It's not really a growl, it's just almost like similar to that of the elephants. It sounds like it's coming from the belly. I'm not sure what's going on between those two adults. But the youngsters mixed in between. And there's a lot of the cubs now around the den itself. Yvonne, thanks for joining us all the way in the Philippines. Welcome here to Kenya in the Masai Mara and in the Mara Triangle, to be specific. And we are just next to one of the most active hyena dens that I've ever seen. And according to the ladies from Michigan State University, there is 80 plus individuals as part of this clan, and so it does make for very interesting interactions, and the whole political system that hyenas fall part of is very intriguing. And here next to the den, this is obviously the central site within a hyena's territory. So we're right in the middle of it, right in the mix. And this would be your dominant females with their cubs. That would be around this den site here. As we listen in. Well, thanks for your comment, Adrian. Another one of nature's wonders. Absolutely. This is one of the most fascinating places I have ever been to, with hyenas in abundance. There's all sorts of ages and sizes, male and female, mostly female, because remember that females form the dominant part of the hyena social structure, the lowest ranking female being higher ranked than the highest ranking male. So mostly females. Now, Noel, you're wondering what is the hyena's relationship? Lowell, sorry, I've got that with an N. Lowell. Actually, hyena are in the middle. They're not dogs or cats. They're in their own family called Hyenidae, which includes the spotted hyena, the brown hyena, the striped hyena, and the wolf. But in terms of their evolutionary line, they are closer to cats, and that's why we call the youngsters cubs. However, they do have characteristics of cubs. Let's just watch here. There seems to be a little bit of an issue with this one adult. Don't know. They all seem to be taking it. And it seems to be that they do have a problem with that one for some reason. So hyena have quite a lot of both cat and dog characteristics. The footprints or paw tracks looking very dog-like, but closer related to the cats. They are very sociable, which is more like the dogs. Now, Faraya, you're saying that your dogs are listening. Well, that's one of those sounds that, yes, when I lived on the game reserve with my dogs as well, they used to prick their ears up whenever they heard hyena. There were two animals that really made them listen out at night, and that was hyena and jackals. And so I'm pretty sure that it's in their blood for them to be careful of them. Now, Murali, you're wondering when the cubs start eating meat. They will do so within a month of being born. They almost immediately do get a taste for little bits of meat. And what the adults do is they're not like wild dogs where they'll come back and regurgitate their food for them. And not particularly like lions either, where they take them to the kill. What the hyenas will do is that after having made a kill, they generally bring back scraps and pieces and maybe some skulls, and then they bring it back for the cubs to chew on those little bits of meat and pieces of bone. So it's good for their teeth, helps them teeth, and it gets them a very good taste for meat. Only at quite a bit later will they start to take them on their actual hunts. And little cubs like this, they will suckle from their mom up until about 18 months or even 20 months of age. So nearly 2 years old, which is quite old for a carnivore and the big predators like this. So it's almost an adult while he's still suckling, well, the size of which is quite incredible. So it's very interesting. And look at this, we've got a couple of youngsters here right next to the vehicle, very curious. And so what an amazing situation to be in. I do just like to keep them, hey buddy, wait, not chewing on my tires and not getting a habit of that either. So it's good for them just to be nervous of the vehicle a little bit. Now, Torna, you're wondering what advantage that longer neck gives them, as we can see with that one of them over there. Well, Torna, obviously having a longer neck always helps you to lift your head a little bit up above the grass. Also with those very big ears of theirs, they can really put their head up and attempt to try and pick up all the sounds, as well as getting their nose up into the wind so that they can pick up on all the smells possible. And so, folks, this is absolutely fascinating being here next to this hyena den, and I'm very happy that we've had so many people join us. Well, you have been watching Safari Live. We're in Kenya, and we are next to a hyena den in the Mara Triangle. Thanks for joining us, folks, on the Action broadcast, and stay tuned for more of the same coming from us in Kenya on Safari Live. Thanks, everybody. That was just a little Action broadcast. You can feel free to watch that on the YouTube, on the Facebook page. And that's now, you can see that anytime you like, your friends and family, send them on over to that if they're interested in seeing a hyena den. We're not going to go anywhere, folks, but while we stay here and watch these little cubs, let's send you on down south to South Africa, and let's see what James has found for you.
Well, I'm still with this elephant bull. I haven't moved from here. He has broken a bit more of this tree, destroyed it, savaged it, if you like, and he's now eating the leaves. He's not having so much a go at the fruits, but he is having a go at the leaves. And that's because, of course, the fruits are not yet ripe. And in theory, a tree like this protects itself from from an elephant doing exactly what it has done to this tree by having its fruits ripen on the ground. That means that the elephant never has caused to push over the tree in order to get at the fruits. It's one of the main reasons they don't ripen on the tree but on the ground, we think. Unfortunately, not all of them can escape, and some of them obviously have got very tasty leaves, which the elephants are not prepared to reach up for. Well, there's a whole branch going in. Look at that. That's got little fruits on it, and and it's got leaves. Those fruits will almost certainly not even be quarter digested, because they're not even ripe yet. We should very soon. Is there another one coming behind there? Oh, it's just his tail swishing there. We should very soon be able to stop and eat the marula fruits. And I seem to remember at this time last year they were out in force. So I think they're a bit later this year. I do remember attempting to make some marula beer, which was disgusting. Not that I've ever tasted marula beer that isn't particularly disgusting. Marula beer is not to be confused with amarula, which has has very little marula in it at all. Marula beer is plain fermented marula juice, water and sugar. Well, something's giving him gas, Cheryl. You say, would unripe fruit give him gas? This elephant has been, passing wind like a tornado while you've been away. He has been thoroughly gassed up by something, whether it is unripe marula fruits or just his hind gut fermenting digestive system. I'm not really sure. I don't think it would give him any more gas than normal. Elephants are pretty gassy creatures at the best of times. Sebastian, would you like me to move around to a position where the light is slightly less foul than it is here?
Yes, thank you.
About the ear span of a big male elephant. You mean if he opened them out from end to end, how wide would it be? Probably about 2.5 meters, Ashley. 2.5 meters, which is, let's say 7.5 feet, 7.5 to 8 feet. Yeah, that's much better. The light is infinitely more pleasant than I gave you last time. Ow. That snapping noise is quite intimidating, I must say. Magnificent fellow. Alrighty, well, we've had the hyenas. We have had, well, that's all we've had from the carnivore order today. But now we have got further carnivores with Taylor McMuddy.
We've got the most amazing thing, everybody. The jackal pups are still around. They've moved Denzo, and look how big they've got. And of course, they have no fear and are not worried. The others are in front of the car, so close, can't even see them at the moment. And there's another one. And so all 4 pups are still alive, and then one of the adults is also here with them. Just standing just to the right of that one, which is quite cool. So it's all happening out here this morning, but no lions just yet. We're actually in the area where we had the marsh breakaways yesterday. You can see the adults just keeping an eye out, looking around. So they're obviously still relying on the adults. They do have big bellies this morning too, so I wonder if they maybe brought something back, like a guinea fowl or a scrub hare, which we've seen them playing around with before and carrying. But how great is this? They are so chilled. They are the most chilled jackals I've ever come across in my entire life. And it's really amazing, especially when you've been guiding for a few years, to see things like this. We normally view them from such a distance. So to have this really close interaction with the vehicle, and just to show you how curious they are, is pretty spectacular. I mean, I've never been able to examine a jackal so closely before, and also to watch young pups grow up. But very wet from the rain. Very, very wet. And I don't know where they've been, if they were in the burrow. We've got a little midge on your head. Yes, shake it off. I wouldn't like that to be crawling around in my hair. I reckon that they wouldn't have stayed in their den, although I think they're too big to go in a den now. I think they'd be spending majority of the time just outside, where their den once was. Well, they move around quite a bit as well. There's about 1 kilometer of road that we can see them along, and they might have been here yesterday with the lions too, just out of view, perhaps hiding from the wind. They don't like the wind so much. They're always car away. Look at them, they're right here. Hello. Another one that was here, but it's just gone. They're in front of the car now, which they're just over there, but we can't see them at the moment. Oh, they're still here. Alison, you said the more you see these jackals, the more they look like coyotes to you. I've never seen a coyote before. I've seen pictures of them, but I can understand where you get that sort of fox-coyote look. Teasing one another. I'm trying to also work out if we've got boys and girls. I think that one's a female that's just walking to the left, the one you got. And then, go on. Also, it's very difficult to tell the difference between the two. You kind of got to look for parts that make it a girl and the parts that make it a boy. That looks like a boy. That one. What else have we got? They're all 4 of them. They love us. They always come around the cars. It's really amazing. That's another girl. So 2 girls, 1 boy. Let's see what you are. We're trying to identify what that one is now. Oh, big yawns. Have you had an exciting day? It's nice to see them with full bellies, though. Patrick, you said you think they look like foxes. They do. I suppose maybe with the multicoloration, the kind that you sort of see on foxes too. And ears are almost identical. Hi. Craig, they're coming to say hello to you. Craig, have you ever seen jackals so close to the car like this before?
Not so close.
Craig is also saying he actually hasn't seen it before either. We're very lucky to see stuff like this. I actually can't even resist. This is amazing to have them so close to us. Wow. We're very relaxed. So great. Look at them. Hi guys, would you like to hear a story? Did you hear your poem? Shall we read the poem to them once more and see what their reaction is? I'm going to very carefully try and bring my book out. You ready for story time? I'm just trying to shuffle very, very, very slowly. I think we should read the jackal poem once more. Right, I made this for you, jackals. I hope you appreciate it. Don't run away. Right, are you ready? This is the story of the Fantastic Four. Listen up, everybody come round. Please come back here. They're like children at school. When it's story time and then everybody wants to play outside. That's exactly what's going on. Now, pay attention, please. Sally, sit down. I'm just joking. They don't have names. I don't think I'm going to read the poem to them because I feel like I'm just going to be insulted because they're not listening to me. But they are coming right around the car. They're so curious. I've never seen anything like this before. And I don't know if it's because they've grown up with the vehicles from a very young age. The den was quite close to the road, so they would have been quite curious, poking their heads out when they were still predominantly living inside and underground. And now they actually, that's quite interesting, that behavior there. Anyways, and now they're so relaxed. So typically when you see jackals catching Thompson's gazelles and things, they normally clamp like they're doing now to their sibling, who's actually just more enjoying the massage. But they'll bite and they chew. Obviously the jackal doesn't have a powerful bite force like a lion, a leopard or a hyena. And they need to maybe move their jaws around a little bit more to try and kill their prey. Remember, again, they're not just scavengers, they hunt as well. I bet you're all so jealous. It has to be hands down one of the cutest things I've ever seen. I mean, lion cubs are amazing. Leopard cubs are absolutely incredible too. But to see something like this, it's just unbelievable. Now, I think they're coming around again. Lilu, you're wondering if their tails will indicate mood like a dog. I would imagine so. These are descendants of dogs, of course. I'm just trying to think. No, they're not here anymore. I think they're right in front, just over there. That's just the edge of the car. You can just see its ears. So most certainly, especially when we see them alarming and barking, they normally stand with their hair sort of raised slightly on their back, their tails stiffened, and sometimes the hair on their tail also sort of erect slightly, and then of course ears and things like that. Okay, I believe everybody wants me to do the poem, but we have to wait for them to come out. Jackals, thank you. Yes. Okay, we'll do the poem once more then, seeing as though this one is maybe going to listen. This is the story of the Fantastic Four, the jackal pups that live down on the Mara floor. Jackals never like to roar. Watching them is not a bore. They like to run and jump and play. Seeing them just makes my day. Round the termite mound, they have some fun. Now listen up, jackals, but a lion would ensure the fun is done. Be careful of those ones. If life is kind, the pups will thrive and keep the flapjack legend alive. So there we go. Remember, we were calling them flapjacks at one point because they were flat jackals. They were fast asleep, and we were trying to work out what we could call them. It's a pity that the lions aren't around because the interaction between the two is quite special, in fact. Kirst just said 10 out of 10. Thanks, Kirst. But there they are. They want you to play. No chasing after grasshoppers today. I suppose you don't have to. When Mum and Dad have brought you back something to eat, they'll still just play with one another. That's something we actually haven't seen a lot of, is the four of them pouncing about and practicing their very valuable hunting skills. Again, we see it with lions and leopards all the time, to an extent hyenas, but these guys have also got to do the same thing. It's important that they practice on one another, otherwise they're never going to be able to catch those gerbils or anything else, or scrub hares, guinea fowl. I mean, they're incredible little animals, and they're quite quick too. They move at a great speed, and just in terms of the acceleration speed, putting one another down to the ground. Oh, this is amazing. Kirst, do you want to do a action broadcast here? How do you feel about that? I don't know if it's exciting enough. They're all playing with one another. Great. So Megan is just going... Megan is just setting up. We're going to do an action broadcast in a minute. But how's that maneuver? That little swoop and then a sweep with the tail. Oh, this is so great. This is the first time I've actually seen this, in fact. Hopefully they don't go running away now. Oh, I hope you guys stay right here. That's incredible. Look how quick they are. They kind of play the same like lions do, I suppose. Every now and then when we shuffle in the cars, they're not quite used to it. But they will get better. They're definitely much better. I mean, I can turn and make noise. Craig can move the camera around quite freely, and they don't seem to be too bothered. Megan, just let me know when I must sit quietly. This is such a joy to watch. Right, I'm going to sit quietly now. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mara Triangle here in Kenya, where you've just joined us on the largest safari vehicle in the world. Now, this is a live and interactive show that you are watching. So if you'd like to ask any questions about these adorable jackal pups, all you have to do is comment away. Now, I've been very, very lucky to watch these jackal pups grow from when they first emerge from the den to as they've slowly starting to develop their adult coloration, and now they're practicing on each other, on their sort of hunting skills. And they'll pounce about, kind of like dogs do at home. But it's really, really amazing to see something like this. It's the first time in 6 years I've ever seen jackal pups, black-backed jackal pups, in fact, playing and so close to the vehicle. It's really amazing. Now, we're not in any danger. Jackals to humans, unfortunately, pose no threat whatsoever. Humans to jackals, however, all over Africa pose a huge threat, as when they get a little bit older, they tend to take down sheep and goats and a lot of livestock, so the farmers don't particularly enjoy them. However, they are very safe out here in the Mara Triangle. They've got all this amazing land to roam around on, which is a protected area, so they shouldn't have any trouble. Now, I'm uncertain as to how old these guys are, but I've been seeing them for the last few months. But I reckon they're between 4 and 6 months old now. They're not spending any time in the den anymore. They're living outside of it. And they're still relying on mom and dad, though. They're still around in the air and bring back the food every now and then. You can see they've got those big bellies, which I think is why they've got a spring in their step this morning, is they've got all this energy. But they're very curious. Sometimes we're lucky we get to watch them racing through the long grass, chasing after grasshoppers, and that's how it kind of starts. So this practicing with one another, this play fighting, is very important, because soon they're going to have to move off eating grasshoppers, and once they disperse and go on their own, because they don't live with their parents for forever, they will have to go off and find a mate eventually. It'll So does that mean, am I still live with the internet audience? Sorry everybody, that didn't go live. Now this is the hard part. No, they're going to try and set up another one. That's probably the most difficult thing about doing live, is that then you have to repeat yourself when it doesn't go live, which is, it's not quite the same. Anyways, we'll just carry watching our little pups. They're very, very cute. Very, very amazing to see this. And I hope you're all getting lots and lots of screenshots, because I don't know when we will see something like this again. Okay, right. Let's try and do this again. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mara Triangle here in Kenya, where we are sitting with 4 jackal pups as they're acting a little bit mischievous this morning. This is a live and interactive safari, so if you have any questions for me, all you have to do is comment away. Now, they've settled down, unfortunately. Just a moment ago, they were bounding about and playing with one another, which was really amazing to see, but maybe they get excited again. Now, someone else has just arrived in the sighting. It looks like either mom or dad is coming back in just from above them, which is quite nice. I think just coming to investigate and make sure that they're all right. And it's incredible how these youngsters are so relaxed around the vehicles in comparison to the adults, because typically a lot of the behavior out here is, of course, natural instinct, but then to a degree it's monkey see, monkey do. They learn from one another. So I haven't seen the adults come right up to the car, but we have also grown up. All these jackal pups have grown up with us. There we go, running back. Look how submissive they're being. See how they're lowering themselves, how excited they are. Oh, that is absolutely precious, running after the adult. I'm not sure if that's mom or dad, unfortunately. I think they're hoping that it's going to regurgitate something. I don't know if it did. Typically wild dogs do that very well. I suppose jackals do that to an extent, and then they also bring back food. Here we go, they are regurgitating. Oh, that's amazing. I've never seen jackals regurgitating before. They look exactly like the African wild dogs. What I have seen jackals doing a lot of is actually bringing scrub hares, bringing ground-dwelling birds back to the den site. Now, these jackal pups have got to the age now where they don't need to live inside the den anymore. They spend most of their time outside the den, and they're actually self-sufficient at the moment. I've seen them hunting grasshoppers, and there's some nice big juicy grasshoppers out here in Kenya, which would be a delicious meal for young jackals. But I think they've been fairly well fed this morning, and they've got those bulging bellies. So they won't necessarily be suckling anymore. I think they'll be predominantly feeding on solids. And soon, it's going to be very sad, they're all going to disappear and go off on their own. Ruby, you've said they've all got such pretty faces. They do indeed. They are so gorgeous. It's just a pity they've now moved right away from the vehicle. We'll see how much longer we can watch them for. But they were coming right around the cars. And it's unusual to see jackals coming around the vehicles the way that they were. I've never seen it in my life before. And I've been out in the bush for 6 years now, doing this every single day. So to see something like that is really, really special, especially after being exposed to the amazing wildlife over the last couple of years. So it just goes to show you can see anything new anytime. Nicole, you're wondering if jackals are related to wild dogs? Well, essentially they're all descendants of dogs. So at some point down the line, I suppose they are. But no, I mean, they don't really look anything like a wild dog at all. They look more like a fox or a coyote or something along those lines. Again, also oh, goodness, my words are escaping me today, but essentially we're relatives of dogs at some point. But there they are, they're beautiful. They've still got a long way to go before they get their adult coloration. Chris, you said I'm so lucky to be so close. Yes, I'm very, very spoiled, but they're not close anymore. They're probably about 80 meters away from the vehicle now, and we're probably going to lose sight of them as they disappear back towards that adult. And they are going to be going out on adventures with the two adults now. And because they need to learn how to hunt, they need to learn, good spots, where to scavenge, all these different types of things. But that was wonderful. That was really quite amazing. And I hope you enjoyed that little adventure with Craig and I. But keep an eye out for those live notifications, because if these jackal pups start bouncing about again, or perhaps going out to look for some grasshoppers, we'll definitely go live again. So until then, well, we hope to see you soon. Sorry, I didn't know if I was off air from the action broadcast. Right, I'm going to send you back down to South Africa as our jackals disappear into the grass. Apparently he's staring in a few pages in his book.
Welcome back again to us. It seems like you have not been with us for ages. That's because you've been having wonderful sightings up in the Mara with young jackal pups, which I think that must be quite something to see. Folks, as I promised to talk about the gwari, the magic gwari, and here we've got a wonderful specimen. This is probably about as big as it gets. It could probably get a little bit bigger than this, but gets up to about maybe 12 feet, 15 feet in height. It's about the maximum it can grow to. And it's very characteristic by how green these leaves are. Generally, even in the winter months, it's the only green tree around. But that does not mean that it's edible. And if I take a leaf for you here, we've spoken about this before, the tannin test, it is not very nice. The whole mouth just gets bitter, and it's not very pleasant. But what is wonderful about the magic gwari is that you can actually, this is not the best example, but they get quite nice long straight branches, and you can cut that branch off and you can use it for beating fire. The leaves are not flammable, so it's quite useful for fire beating, and it is also a very good indicator of moisture. A lot of people talk about the magic guarri as a branch for divining water, as the name Euclea Divinorum, to divine water. You'll take a stick and you'll kind of walk like this and it'll tell you where the water is, but I don't think that works. What it does do is where it grows, there is water. That is essentially the key and the trick to it. Okay, everybody has spoken about the toothbrush before, so I'm not going to do that, even though I've made one here. It is something that everyone who comes to the bush is shown. Magic guarri, you can just cut off the end and you bite that piece there. It works quite well as a toothbrush. But I believe it's been overplayed, and Kirsten, I'm sure, is loving me right now for attempting to do it again. But one thing that we can do with the magic guarri is that the roots are such an amazing product. If we dig the roots out and you burn them and then you make ash, you can actually use that ash as a substitute for salt in your food. And where the guarris are growing, they're generally down here in the low-lying areas close to the river in what we'd call brackish sort of soils. They don't only indicate brackish soils, they grow on brackish soils. So when you find a guarri, you can be quite certain, because essentially when I mean brackish, from the top of the slope, the rain has fallen, it's pulled all the salt down from the top. So you get an accumulation of salt in your lower lying areas. And this plant is a very good indication of that, hence why we can use it as a substitute. But what is also amazing about the roots, many infusions. So by making a tea out of the roots, you can drink it. It can help with any sort of constipation issues. I'm sure the dosage is probably the difference, because it helps with constipation and diarrhea. So there must be some difference in the dosage, because obviously one counteracts the other. And also by making an infusion of the roots, you can drip it into your ear if you have an earache. So don't worry, magic guarri. It is a wonderful plant. I do enjoy it. It's not very well eaten. The fruits, you can see a little bit of them here. Not very clear on this sample, but they're starting to come out, these little balls. They're quite readily eaten by hornbills and go-away birds. And in times of severe drought, little shoots like what I have on this plant here, little shoots like that, are a lot tastier than the harder, tougher leaves. But it's evergreen. The leaves stay on the plant all year round. They're quite tough. We're called sclerophyllous. If you've ever heard that term before, it's very tough. Very, very tough. And they have a lot of chemicals for defense against being eaten. But a wonderful, wonderful tree. Yeah, that's about it for me for now with the magic guarri. And Kirsten, toothbrush just for you. I'll bring it home. I'll bring it back and you can have it, because I know you love the toothbrush tree. Okay, let me just plug ourselves back in. So we had a hyena that walked past us just before, while you were on Action Broadcast, and it kind of crossed. We were in the drainage line having a look at some birds, as you do, and ooh, here's a track of a male leopard right there. We are in Chitwa at the moment, folks. We came down here hopefully to see if we could find signs of Hosana. We hope to pick up some signs of Hosana, and but he's crossed a sort of west into Little Gari, so there's no sign of him. But while we are trying to figure out what we're going to do with the rest of our morning, we have my friend Noel, who is still on foot.
Alright, so we have been busy tracking elephants, slowly but surely making our way through. So we are just busy following trails through the grass, pretty much, where they've stepped. Sometimes we can see their tracks, sometimes not. We've been finding fresh dung, very, very fresh dung. I estimate that we're probably about 3 minutes behind them at this point. So where we're heading now, we've also changed the way we walk. Sometimes what happens is Herbie walks far up ahead in a circle, but now as we're getting closer to our elephants, Herbie's right in front of us. And that's obviously because he is our safety officer during the walks. But what you can see through the pathways up here is, do you see how the grass is bent over? That's where they've been walking. So where I'm going to walk right now is exactly where the elephants have been. Like this. And then up and through. And they're coming from an area where they would have had a drink, and now they're just feeding as they move in and about. And now elephants don't move in a straight line. They zigzag a little bit more. So sometimes we're going to hear them feeding when they're breaking off the branches, but a lot of the time, especially with all this beautiful grass, we're not always going to hear them. It's going to be very muffled sounds because of the grass that they're eating. We've also been finding roots, dug up roots and chewed roots, as well as a few tiny little bits of branches. Now we're coming up into a little bit of a thicker area. So we are going to go back to Ralph at the hyena den so that we can get through this little thicket. And then hopefully when we get through, the elephants will be there.